You're listening
to the Beer O'Clock, the Beer O'Clock Show.
You're listening to the Beer O'Clock Show.
It's Beer O'Clock and this is the Beer O'Clock Show. My name is Mark and joining me, as always, is my bee buddy Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
All right, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
You excited about this week's show?
I am very excited. I'm always excited when we're presented with 4 beers for a single show. And what could possibly go wrong?
Indeedy. Also joining us this week, she's known on Twitter as Look At Brew, but she's known to us as Rachel. Hello, Rachel.
Hi, guys.
Hello, welcome to the Beer O'Clock Show.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Rachel's here tonight to lead us through another of our county showcases. You remember we did one with Essex, was it last year with Justin, I think?
It was. It was towards the end of the last season, yes.
Yeah. And we're discovering the wonders of Sussex beers. So we have 4 breweries lined up tonight. We have Gun Brewery, Dark Star, our old friends, Hastings Brewery, and Naked Brew Co. And that, of course, means 4 beers, as Steve said. So with all that to get through, we're just going to get right into it. And we're going to start off with Gun Brewery's extra pale ale called Scaramanga, which is 3.9% and comes in a little nifty can. So let's get into it. What can you tell us about the Gun Brewery, Rachel?
So, Gun Brewery are located in East Sussex. They're at Gun Hill, hence the name, Gun Brewery. And they can be found at Horsebush Farm. Started just last year in 2015. And they're already building a really good reputation for themselves. For these sort of hop-forward beers. They use spring water, Sussex spring water that's on their organic farm. So that's quite a unique thing for them and sets them apart a little bit from everyone else. All their beers are vegan-friendly beers. And yeah, they've really built a really solid brand for themselves in a really short time. They're really pushing forward and expanding already. So good things coming from them.
Very good. Well, it's got a lovely nose on it, this beer, and it comes out a lovely light yellow.
Yeah, it's got that really sort of hazy, extra pale kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
Lovely white lacing as well going around the glass.
Should we get into it, guys?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Let's get started. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Oh, that'll do.
Yep.
That's nice.
All day long on that one. That's incredible. I mean, what you get straight out of the can is this wonderful citrus sort of fruit aroma coming off of it, and that just carries through onto the flavour. It's light in the body. It's really easy to drink. It's got a really easy bitter finish to it, but it's just citrus all the way through, and it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, lovely bitterness on the end. It's got American hops, and it doesn't say which hops. So, Rachel, do you know what hops they put into this?
It varies. It's very much still a work in progress.
Okay.
And it definitely, I don't know exactly what's gone into this one, but it varies as the sort of the hop availability sort of changes. But the can and kegged version has extra dry hopping.
Right.
But it's also available on cask as well.
Okay. Lovely, clean, bitter citrus coming through there. It's really light as well. At 3.9%, it's just highly drinkable. And
It does the job, doesn't it?
It's a bit of a gulper.
It is, yeah. You've got that zesty juiciness up front, and then that dry pithiness that just finishes and makes you want to go back in for more of that juiciness.
Now, Rachel, you said in the introduction about the brewery that they haven't been around long and they're already getting quite a reputation. I think to build on that reputation, am I right in saying that these are one of the guys that featured in the Beer Bods ones to watch box for this year as well?
They did indeed. I think it may have even been Scaramanga that was featured in the box.
Oh, there we go. Once again, where we lead,
there
others
you go.
follow every time.
So yeah, I mean, they seem to have come out of nowhere, and they are building this brilliant reputation. I think their head brewer previously worked at Sheffield Tap, so he comes from an area that's doing some great things with pails, and I think he's bringing that to Sussex. So I mean, Sussex, it seems to have been really diversifying and moving into these extra pale beers, sessionable pale ales, and so you've got Burning Sky doing Plateau, you've got Brighton Beer have done their one that's being bottled and canned as well, and so yeah, it's really exciting for Sussex at the moment with these really super drinkable extra pale session beers. So yeah, it's just one really good example of that, really.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by how drinkable it is. I mean, at 3.9% you would expect it to be, but it's so light, and the bitterness doesn't really come in until the end. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm only getting light bitterness at the end. But I agree with what you're both saying. It's incredibly drinkable, so much so that I've drained mine in about 2 gulps. Because I mean that's incredible. That's it, and it's very much more leaning towards the American style of pale ale rather than the traditional sort of English and UK style, which I think for me is making it even more drinkable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's it. I mean, whereas I think Sussex, like before, a lot of the sort of traditional heritage sort of brewing would be more focused on that English pale ale style. Everyone is sort of moving towards this American style, and Gun really are using the hops to their fullest and getting the most out of them. And I think that's why they've got such a good reputation in such a short time. They know how to use hops well.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. If there is a hop shortage at the moment, I'm dread to think what it's going to be like when there are loads of hops available. Because the beers that we're seeing at the moment, we're seeing all sorts of triple IPAs and double IPAs coming out of everywhere. We're seeing beers like this that are completely overflowing with these wonderful hoppy aromas. But yet people are still saying that there's a hop shortage. So things can only get better from here, really, can't they?
Indeed.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Yeah. Well, since Steve has finished his beer already, and I'm getting to the end of mine, I'm sure Rachel does as well. Steve, do you have any news for us, mate?
Yes, indeed. So, first up this week, and for the 3rd week in a row, I cannot believe what's going on with Innis & Gunn at the moment, mate. They've now they're adding a new permanent beer to its range, an IPA that's going to be brewed with a unique fusion of British, American, and European hops. It's currently available to the on-trade only and will launch in 330ml cans in May. Now, this IPA includes Super Styrian, Cascade, Magnum and Admiral varieties and has been brewed using a new extra pale malt. However, it's 4.2%. So I was a little bit excited and then I wasn't when I got to that point. So, but we'll see what happens when that's released. So the new Innis & Gunn IPA out in a few weeks for people to sample. While we're talking about new beers, Shepherd Neame just won one county across from Sussex, I believe, if my geography's correct, right. Have released Spitfire Gold in cans. It's now available in 500ml cans. This is a gold version of their traditional Spitfire ale, what they're very well known for. The can is 4.3%, and it's going to be available in Tesco stores nationwide for the time being, exclusively in Tesco stores. So just a quick thank you to the guys at Shepherd Neame for sending us a can of that. I tried it yesterday. I was really impressed with it, actually. Just shows that sometimes you shouldn't just pass by the big regional traditional brewers, because they are producing some really good beer at the moment. And continuing with Tesco news, there was a big announcement last week that Tesco are to add 8 cans to their craft beer range. So these are going to be going into the 4 for 6 promotion. And what Tesco's are saying is actually what it enables the drinker is to have a bit of a mix and match approach to their beers rather than having to buy a 6-pack of the same cans. Something that a lot of us know anyway from buying from independent bottle shops. But the beers that are currently forming their craft range, check these out. This is a really great range of beers. So you've got Adnams Dry Hop Lager, Adnams Crystal Rye IPA, Brooklyn East IPA, Anchor California Lager, Piston Head Amber Lager, and then these last three are the ones that pretty much almost broke Twitter last week. Vocation Life and Death IPA, Vocation Heart and Soul Session IPA, and Vocation Pride and Joy American Style Pale Ale. So those beers are going to be available from Tesco stores starting from this week. So you should be able to get your hands on an ever-growing range of craft beer in Tesco's. And that's it for this week, mate. I wanted to try and keep it short because we've got a lot of beer to drink.
Yes, indeed. So let's get on to the second one then. Just power through them.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to put this out there right now. I am very excited about this one because I've had this beer on cask before and it blew me away. So I am very excited to try the canned version of it.
Right, well, this is the Hastings 4 Cees APA, can conditioned as well, 5.7%.
It's lively.
Oh, it is indeed. It says on the tin that it's a British take on an American pale ale. So, and it's bubbly as fuck.
The nose on it's incredible.
It is. It's astonishing.
It's got that sort of like piney quality to it, laced with a little bit of citrus, a little bit of lemon and lime coming off of that. It pours a lovely sort of, what's that? Dark yellow, ambery colour, nice thick white head. Really lively. Really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I'm getting sticky tinned pineapple sort of syrup on the nose as well. Reminds me of childhood.
That's a good shout, actually. I'm liking that.
Well, I'm not getting that, but let's get into it. Cheers.
For the second time tonight. Cheers, guys.
Super smooth.
Oh, incredibly smooth.
Yeah, that's good, that is.
From beginning to end. That is just smooth all the way through. And the bitterness at the end of that, hardly any, so to speak of. Just so well balanced.
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? It's that balance. It's that's super drinkable. Super drinkable.
Yeah, I'm going to take it a little bit slower with this one.
Yeah,
because it's 5.7, yeah. I don't want to be guzzling that one down.
It's got, well, at 5.7 you would expect it, but it's got quite a bit more body to it compared to the Scaramanga. Slightly nicer hop, the sweet malts coming through on that, whereas before it was more, hardly any malt flavours coming through on the Scaramanga, more hop driven. But this is really, really nice. So, Rachel, why don't you give us a little rundown of what is actually happening in the Sussex beer scene?
Oh, man, where do I start? Where do I start? There's so much going on right now. You've got, well, it's probably better to start with a little bit of the history. I won't dwell too much on it, but I'm going to assume everyone knows about Harvey's.
Yeah.
And how they've been dominating East Sussex brewing for a long time. But I think East Sussex is really where it's at the moment. It's full of these creative new wave breweries that are coming through. A lot of young breweries that are experimenting with new hops and new styles and coming through with these diverse core ranges, which are, I think, in turn maybe influencing the more traditional heritage brewers in the region.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got, Horsham, where I live, was once dominated by King and Barnes. I'm sure everyone knows the history of King and Barnes. And Hall and Woodhouse closed them down. And Horsham, I mean, Horsham pubs have been awash with Badger beer, which is probably a topic for another day. But the closure of King and Barnes did mean that Horsham got a lot of new breweries coming through. So we got Andy Hepworth started Hepworth Brewery, who are expanding. They're moving to Pulborough, to a new site in Pulborough. Bill King went on to start King's Brewery, which it's changed hands a few times since then. It's currently owned by Justin and Nikki, who are also heading up the Beer Collective distribution company, which you might have heard of, and Two Tribes Brewing as well, who are working with the likes of Island Records, which I think you had on the show already, the Island Records IPA.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill King's gone on to set up Firebird Brewing over in Rudwick, and so they're doing some really interesting beers. They're really inspired by world beer styles. A lot of Belgian styles coming from them, German styles, American pales and the like. And then we've got Gareth, who used to run the King and Barnes shop. Has gone on to open Beer Essentials in Horsham, and that's going from strength to strength. It's a little independent beer shop that also do cask takeouts, and he also runs the Horsham Beer Festival each year, which is it's a highlight. It really is. It sells out. Got a queue for tickets. Brilliant. But I think what Sussex is all about at the moment really is this this balance. I mean, you've got this heritage that's being balanced with this new wave kind of modern take on brewing, and so you've got the brewers at the traditional end of the scale really sort of experimenting more and sort of diversifying their ranges a bit. And then you've got that new wave end of the scale, these brewers that are being more creative, but sort of retaining that drinkability in their beers, that sort of that sessionability that the sort of the older school beers maybe had more of. I mean, we're not at a stage in the county where we're sort of brewing a lot of like abstract beers. You're not going to find that much in the way of bretted stuff or barrel aged stuff or triple IPAs. It's all about that marriage of the sort of the creativeness and that drinkability really. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean there was a time when like stouts and porters would always be the first beers to sell out at beer festivals because you just didn't see them very much on cask. And that's changing, and I think that's down to consumer sort of interest and that sort of creativeness and diversity that's coming from the brewers that are responding to that market that's there now. And the brewers, I mean, they're open. They discuss stuff with each other. They talk to each other. There's banter between them on Twitter, and it's a very open community. You've got the brewers support each other. You've got established brewers helping the new guys set up, and it's all very open and it's got a real community vibe. Which is good. It's helping move things forward, I think, and certainly in the last sort of 4 years, things have really kind of exploded, and it's been a very noticeable sort of shift, momentum sort of gathering, and it's a very exciting time to be a beer drinker in Sussex right now.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, if the breweries are putting out these kind of blend of traditional beers and new agey bit with the American hops and all the these lovely bursts of flavour, then you know I think Sussex is the county for me because that's the kind of thing I gravitate to.
I think if we look at that as maybe a direct comparison to the last county showcase that we did in terms of looking at Essex, I think one of the things that Justin was saying was that the Essex breweries seem to be stuck in tradition and only producing traditional beers, and they're not experimenting and they're not working together. And they're not looking to respond to that customer demand, and it really seems like the breweries in Sussex are kind of just that one stage a little bit further on from Essex in terms of that they have seen that there's a kind of new wave of beer drinkers coming through, and they want to be able to provide beers for those whilst keeping one eye to tradition maybe, but they do seem to be actually embracing where things are right now. Is that the sort of feel that you get, Rachel?
Yeah, definitely. You hit the nail on the head. Sure. It's yeah. I mean, new bars are popping up as well, and there's a lot of demand. The market is here, and Sussex brewers are really responding to that. And I think having that heritage, that tradition, and that new sort of modern palette, if you like, and blending those two aspects of the scene together is really sort of creating a unique kind of vibe for the county in terms of beer as a whole. And I'm really intrigued and really excited to see where it goes from here, really.
I mean, the thing for me, the thing that struck me straight away when you gave these beers to us was that we've got two that are in cans. Now,
Yeah.
as far as I know, there's not a single brewery in Essex that are canning beers at the moment. And we've had the discussion many times on the show, and I'm sure we've all been involved in this discussion in the bar or on Twitter. Everybody seems to be embracing cans at the moment as being the packaging of choice. Is that again something that you're seeing more of as these more brewers are embracing new styles?
Absolutely. I think Gun and Hastings were two of the first to adopt the can. But yeah, I feel like everyone's jumped on it. Sussex has embraced the can. And more and more releases are coming out in cans. I think We Can Solutions have basically done a tour of Sussex and
Yeah, they
signed
do seem to
everyone
be
up.
quite embedded down that way, don't they?
Yeah.
Because they
but
do the Dark Star Canyon as well, don't they? We
they
can,
do.
yeah.
Yeah. And you've got 360 have jumped on it. You've got Arundel, who are probably, I'd put more at the sort of the traditional end of the scale. They've got their smoked porter in cans now as well. Bison Beer, they're a bottle shop in Brighton. They've released an IPA in the can. It's really been embraced.
Well, Well, I mean, I was thrilled to see this beer in a can because, as I say, I've had it on cast before and I really enjoyed it. And I'm chuffed to be drinking it out of a can because it's just as good, if not better. Do you want to just tell us the story of Hastings Brewery and this beer?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Hastings, they've been going for about 6 years or so now, I think. They're, again, obviously based in East Sussex. And I think similar to Gun in the fact that they're brewing very hop-forward beers, and they're building a really solid reputation on that. Again, vegan-friendly. which gets the thumbs up from me. They're really into that sort of natural hazy vibe of the beer, and I mean, I think that was the driving force behind the setup of the brewery. It was wanting to have local vegan beers, and they've recently rebranded, streamlined their core range. They used to do a blonde, a porter, and a best, 3 very traditional styles, and they were experimenting with their handmade, Hastings handmade, as a side project, which would be these single hopped beers, black IPAs, the Slovenian Brown, which is one of my favourite beers, and last year they streamlined their core range, and they dropped the best porter and the blonde, and they got some of the Hastings handmade beers, and brought those in as their sort of their core lineup, and they've been playing around with saisons and experimenting with different saisons, and really just sort of, again, it's all about that creativity with them, I think, and they've ceased production for a little bit. They're going into not a joint venture as such, but they're pooling resources with Franklin's Brewery. They're currently looking for a bigger site so that they can. I think they're going to join together in this and brew from the same site. So yeah, production will start up again soon, as soon as they get a new site established. But yeah, 4 Cees. The 4 Cees in the beer are Cascade, Centennial, Chinook, and Columbus, which you can find out. I mean, on their website, you can find out about what goes into each of their beers. They give a rundown of all the hops, the malts, the yeast strain, the original gravity of the beer. It's all about that attention to detail with them, and I think that's really helping them to build that reputation that they've got. It's yeah. So they've gone from doing the small batch stuff to really sort of growing and building on their production. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they come back with once they've got that new premises secured, and yeah, getting that beer out there.
Indeed. Steve, do you have any final comments on this 4 Cees from Hastings?
Despite my earlier comment, it's all gone again. So I've really enjoyed it. I've found it incredibly drinkable. The flavours just marry so well in it to produce this incredibly well balanced beer. Mm-hmm. With just such an easy finish to it, and I've got to say, at 5.7%. That could be dangerously drinkable as well. You could find yourself in trouble after a few of those, I think.
Yeah, I found it a little heavier after the Scaramanga, but you would expect to. But the lovely pineapple-y orange flavours on there, that sweet malting, it's just a gorgeous beer.
I'm getting a lot more peach from it as well as it's warmed. Yeah, sort of sticky peach kind of element to it.
Sadly, mine didn't have time to warm.
So let's move on to our third beer then. Let's knock them down. This is a big bottle as well. It's 500 mils. It's 4.2%. This is Dark Star Espresso, which is a rich coffee beer. And I think I've had this before. Have we done this on the show before, Steve?
We've not done this on the show before, but I think we might have spoken about it before. This is a beer that holds somewhat of a special place in my heart. Actually, because it was one of, in the early days of experimenting with beer and finding new beers, I actually found this in my local garden centre of all places, and I was very excited to come across a coffee beer. This was the first ever coffee beer that I drank, and I remember just being blown away by the fact that you could combine coffee and beer, and they would work together. So I'm very excited that we're finally getting a chance to review this on the show.
Well, it's got lovely bitter dark chocolate with hints of vanilla on there, and coffee, obviously, coming through.
Oh, it's all coffee on the nose for me. That is, it's a massive coffee hit. There's some other stuff going on in the background, but front and centre is coffee, and I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I'm getting all that. Yeah, and the dark chocolate's definitely in there for me as well.
Right, well, say no more. Let's get into it, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers, beer number 3. That's pretty light, actually.
It's another super gulpable beer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you doing to us? Rachel, honestly, what are you doing? Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly drinkable. What, 4.2%? It is quite light on the body. So, in terms of, if you think of some of the other coffee beers and stouts and porters that are available that are much higher ABV, they're going to be a lot thicker in the mouthfeel. But this has a really light mouthfeel to it. And it just washes over, and it is like drinking a cup of beery coffee. As far as I'm concerned, it's got a lovely roasted finish to it. Flavours are really well balanced. Yeah, just a really good beer, this one.
Yeah, I get a sort of a nuttiness from those Arabica beans and a kind of bit of a berry, red berry sort of thing going on. Bit of licorice. But yeah, it's that huge sort of espresso hit. First and foremost, that's what it's all about.
The coffee's quite mild on mine. It's quite light in the middle with just bitterness around the edges. But the middle is quite sweet and light. Which is good for me because I'm not a huge fan of straight coffee, unlike Steve.
So no, I love coffee, and like I say, this was the beer that introduced me to the fact that you could actually have coffee in beer. And you didn't have to put it there yourself. That actually, when brewers know what they're doing, they're able to infuse dark beers, porters, stouts with coffee to create these amazing flavours that go on in your mouth. And for me, this is one of those that is just an incredibly drinkable coffee beer. I'm drinking this at room temperature, but I'd quite happily, it's one of those that in the middle of the summer, if there was a bottle of this in the fridge, I'd probably be reaching for it because it'd be just as refreshing as the coldest of IPAs.
Yeah, mine's been in the fridge, but it's been out of the fridge for the last hour or so, so I'm hoping it's slowly opening up. But Rachel, what can you tell us, what's Darkstar up to now? Because I think most people will at least be somewhat familiar with Darkstar.
Sure, yeah. I think everyone's probably aware of how they started and everything. But yeah, I think they're really. I mean, they focus a lot on they've got a solid core range, and they do these their seasonal specials. They've got one at the moment, a wheat purple, which is it's like alcoholic Ribena. It's gorgeous. And yeah, they're really they're rolling out some pubs. They've just opened the Anchor Tap in Horsham, which has been an incredible thing for Horsham. Really, it's raised the bar, so to speak, in terms of quality and choice. Just the range of beers in that one pub alone is it's definitely put a cat among the pigeons, I think, in terms of beer choice in the town. I think they've got another pub opening in Haywards Heath, I think. So yeah, I think that's where they're at the moment. It's focusing on classy, quirky pubs with solid beer range and good atmosphere, really.
And Rachel, do you think Darkstar has been one of the more, I suppose, established traditional brewers in the county? How do you feel they're responding to kind of for want of a better phrase, the craft beer movement. Are they responding well in terms of the beers that they're putting out?
I think so. Yeah, I think again they're one of these breweries that seem to. I mean, for me, they're pretty much part of the initial movement of your hoppy beers. But I guess they're kind of doing their own thing, and they're playing to that heritage sort of style, but with a modern twist. And they're appealing to the sort of more traditional, old school drinkers, and the new wave of craft, for want of a better term, fans. So yeah, you know, they're harnessing, balancing the best of both worlds. I guess with their beers going into cans, that's appealing to a certain set of folk. But you know, they're not kind of damaging sort of any reps for the older guys that were there sort of from the beginning. So they're doing their own thing, and just kind of appealing to everyone really. But you know, I think with their branding, you know, they're not particularly abstract or particularly old and musty. They're, you know, I think they're classy, you know. I think that appeals to a lot of, you know, different people. It's a broad fan base that they've got, and a loyal fan base. I think they'd have to really go some to lose that rep, really.
You know what? I would absolutely love to see this beer in a can. I think that would almost be the perfect vessel for this beer. Just because you get this canned coffee beer explosion going on, and oh yeah. I mean, these days I've got to say, and I think I mentioned this the other week when we had the two beers on from Manchester. Sometimes I'm a little bit put off by a 500ml bottle these days. They seem very big compared to everything else that's available. But this is one that I would quite happily sit back and enjoy this one over the course of the evening, because I just think it's incredibly drinkable and incredibly enjoyable.
Yeah, it's got that lightness, isn't it? It's I think, and if you stick it in the fridge, it does take on that sort of that iced latte kind of vibe.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But I mean, I got in touch with Steph over at Dark Star just to get a little bit of an origin story for the beer, because like you said, it's the same for me. It was the first beer that really opened my eyes to what beer could really be. It was the first coffee beer that I tried, and it was a bit of a wow moment. It was a bit of a pivotal beer for me. So yeah, I got in touch with Steph, and she kindly got back to me with the details of how it sort of started life. And it was initially known as City Porter. It was brewed to celebrate this Brighton gaining city status. And drinkers were convinced that it had coffee in it. It didn't. But that planted the seed of the idea to brew a beer with coffee beans. And so they got a recipe together, stuck some Arabica beans in there, and tweaked it a little bit. I think the initial brew was a bit too bitter, but they tweaked it, and Espresso was born, and it's been the same recipe ever since. So that's the origin story for this beer. And it's one that I keep going back to. It's a go-to beer for me, definitely.
And who doesn't like an origin story? That's you know, we all love one of those. And yeah, for me, sadly, it's a beer that I overlook all too often these days. But I've enjoyed being reacquainted with it tonight, and I can see this being in my beery future.
Well, while we sip away on this, Steve, let's go to every week. You rummage together and put together a little prize box, usually filled with nothing, and it goes out to someone who's taking a nice picture. So, do we have an Instagram of the week, mate?
Yes, mate, and actually you got to choose it this week as well, because I know that the honour was passed to you. I've been having a really indecisive week, and there were too many good pictures on Instagram this week, so I shared a shortlist with Mark, and Mark's chose this week's winner. So the person getting a great big box of nothing, which is the coveted great big box of nothing, and people that were paying attention to Twitter last week will notice that it does exist, because I did actually go and hand last week's winner a great big box of nothing. But for the first time this week, we have a new winner, Mark _ the beer trawler, with an amazing picture of Modus Mandarina, India Pale Ale, an orange can in amongst a load of oranges with a very orangey beer in the glass. Congratulations, Mark, on winning this week's prize. Your big box of nothing, signed by both Mark and I, to mark the occasion, is on its way to you. If you want to have a look at that picture, it's on our Instagram feed. It's also linked through in the show notes. And if you want to have a go at winning your very own great big box of nothing, possibly signed or possibly not by Mark and I, put your picture on Instagram, use the hashtag #CheersGuys, and if I can make a decision next week, you'll be getting the prize heading your way.
So do we have any final comments on this Dark Star Espresso? Rachel?
Oh man, I've been drinking this a lot lately, and I've fallen in love with it all over again. It's stouts and porters are my favourite style of beer, but sometimes they can just be a little bit too heavy. This, for me, it just gives me everything I want flavour-wise, but with that lightness, and it's one of my favourites. I love it.
Yeah, it's such a lovely light beer, and I think for people who love coffee and want a gateway beer into the world of beer, this is a great introduction. I think they'll get kind of, it's not too beery. And that coffee character really comes through, and I think it'll be a good little gateway drug to get into the beer drinking. How about you, Steve?
You know what? I literally, there's nothing I can add to that. I really enjoy this beer. It's the perfect balance of coffee and beer in a glass. For me, it's everything that you'd want if you like those two flavours. And I agree with what you're saying, Mark, as well. It is a perfect gateway to it as well. And from here, you can step up to bigger and thicker things if you want to. But this is one that you can always come back to.
Yeah, for a beer with all those flavours in it, 4.2 is the perfect place for it to be something that everyone can get into.
Absolutely.
So let's all lean forward a little bit and head downhill towards the end and get on to beer number 4, which is from the Naked Brew Co. It is Freudian Slip, which is a special ale. It's kind of classes itself kind of like a barley wine, but with the strength of an old English ale. So 6.5%. And it should be quite interesting. So, as we're pouring, Rachel, what's the deal with Naked Brew Co? Because I've not heard of these guys before.
Okay, so Naked Beer Co. Were established 2013. Head brewer Rob started his career at Bristol Beer Factory. Later, he moved to Ascot Ales after that. But then started Naked Beer Co. To have the freedom, I guess, to brew his own beers, his own recipes, and they're based down in Lancing at the moment. I think they're looking for new premises. It was quite a small unit that they were in, so I think as demand has grown, I think they're outgrowing their little unit down there. But you got Ian and Rob, and they're brewing big beers with a really bold character. they've always got a witty name. But I think their personalities really come through in their beers. They're funny guys and a good bunch of people. So
Well,
yeah, this is part of the core range. They got Freudian Slip, Streaker IPA, and Indecent Exposure Porter. So they're the three core beers, and they're brewing various seasonal specials around that. So yeah, I mean, this is one that I really, really love.
it's got a lovely. I'm getting boozy dried apricots. And kind of like
Yeah.
a effervescent nose tingly, which is kind of why I'm coughing.
That's,
as well.
that's not an aroma. Effervescent nose tingly.
I didn't say that was an aroma. I mentioned the aroma before that.
It is very bubbly though, mate. It's really lively in the glass. I've got to agree with that. But yeah, I'm getting like maybe a woody aroma and maybe some dark fruits on there. So it's maybe some blackberries.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a brambly thing going onto it on the aroma.
So we get into it, guys.
Yeah, why not? Let's do a fourth beer.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, that's tasty. That's a tasty beer. It's quite sweet. It's not overpoweringly sweet, but there's a sweetness to it. And there's maybe a little bit of caramel in there, but still a lot of those dark sort of almost tart fruits as well going on in that.
Yeah, I get dates and figs. Definitely that sweetness that you're talking about. It certainly sort of punctuates the finish. I think that's that sweetness. Maybe a touch of mocha. It might be the espresso lingering a little bit. There's a nuttiness in there as well. I mean, it's quite smooth and gentle on the palate almost, but you know, it's a 6.5. It's like liquid dessert.
Yeah, there's lots of body there. 6.5%, like you say. I'm getting the dark fruits. I'm getting woodiness coming through. It's really smooth, like you say, and so much body in it. I can see this being quite filling.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to put this in barley wine territory simply because of the ABV. I mean, it references barley wine on the bottle, but I think it's more kind of old ale territory. I know, Rachel, we played around. We spoke quite a bit in terms of the order of doing the beers. And I do wonder whether doing the espresso before this was a mistake now. Because I do feel as though I like yourself, I'm probably still picking up some of the coffee hints in there. And it would have been good to have done this on maybe the fresher palate after the two light beers and then come back to the espresso. But the flavours in here are just incredible. It's incredible. Again, very well balanced. Slightly thicker body than we've had tonight as well. And yeah, just again a beer that is hiding its ABV very well as well. I wouldn't put this at that percentage. Off the bat, 6.5%. You know, I'd probably have a lot of this before I'd be like, oh, well, what's the ABV on that then?
Yeah, I mean, it is quite complex as you know as you go through the bottle. It is quite a complex beer. I pick up more and more each time I drink it, and I do feel that it does have a bit of a mocha vibe to it. I think I'd get that without having the espresso first. But yeah, I mean, I wonder how well this would age. That's my thoughts at the moment. Is could I get away with not drinking this for a year, and would the flavour evolution be worth the wait?
I just wonder if it'd get just a little bit thicker in the flavours, not in terms of the body, but I wonder whether those flavours would condense down a little bit, because what I'm still getting from it is lots of dark fruits. That's the thing that's coming through for me, and I just wonder, you know, give it a year, and are those flavours going to intensify, or are they just going to kind of slowly disappear?
Yeah, I think you're going to lose a lot of the brown sugar that's coming through, and it will just be a dark, fruity, woody mess after a year, personally. Which, for some people, that's the kind of thing they like, and more power to them. But it is a really nice and complex beer. I don't know. It doesn't really say much about itself on the bottle. You don't really know what you're going to expect, but it's just really nice and drinkable.
In a way, despite what I just said, I'm glad that we're finishing on it. I think it's the right beer to have finished on. I think, out of the 4 that we've done with the espresso, it was always going to be difficult where to put that beer, because you are going to get the overpowering flavours of coffee. But this is absolutely the right beer to finish the evening on, because this isn't one that I'm going to finish before we finish recording, but it is going to be one that I'm going to enjoy for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, well, while we dwell on this and we chew on it a little bit, every week Steve puts out a topic on Twitter, which causes contention and controversy, usually. Steve, what did he put out to the masses this week to get the feedback on?
Okay, so this week, very much based on one of the stories that was in the news in this week's show. Obviously, the news of the week was that vocation beers will soon be stocked in Tesco. There were people that were for and against the idea. So I simply asked the question this week of what do people think of supermarkets stocking craft, and I put craft in little speech marks, beer ranges. Now, a few people took issue with the fact that I put craft in the speech marks. And I think they were kind of losing the point of the question. But so the question was, supermarket stocking craft beer ranges, love it or no. So again, a really good response this week. Over 200 people taking part in the poll. 84% landslide victory in favour of love it. Although there were lots of comments about, you shouldn't buy from supermarkets, you should support your local independents. And yes, I appreciate that. You should support your independent local bottle store. But for those people that maybe live in a rural area that don't have the likes of your Burns and Black and your Little Leeds Beer House on your doorstep, the only place you're going to be able to get these beers is from supermarkets. And there were also a lot of people talking about supermarkets' own craft ranges as well. So, we've seen the likes of Marks and Spencer in the last few years developing their own beer ranges. So, just some of the comments that we had in this week before I open it up to you guys. So John Rogers says, it gives him a higher baseline of beers for everyday drinking and supports my purchase of even better quality new releases and brews. Guzzler says, I want to support specialist beer shops as much as I can, but it's expensive if you like to drink a lot of beer. It's good that supermarkets are trying to stock decent beer. They will never be able to replace specialist shops, though. Oliver Conningham, absolutely. When there are no indie bottle shops nearby, it's great to easily access a good range of craft beer. Sarah Maxfield says she doesn't buy much from supermarkets, but thinks it's great they stock it and they think it's often a good gateway to amazing beers. And then just to finish, two really kind of, I suppose, two comments that really sum this one up. So Luan Brew says, why wouldn't you love it? Beer at great prices. Punk is punk, no matter where you buy it or how much it costs. And then the final one this week, and this is a cracking comment, and hats off to the guy for this one. So Michael Edwards at SM Edwards says, craft beer isn't meant to be just for a few people. It should be for everybody. So craft beers in supermarkets. Let's start with our guest first. Rachel, what's your view on this one?
I'm all for it. I buy it in supermarkets. I think when supermarkets have a good range and they do it well, it's, what's not to like? I think there are some supermarkets out there. Tesco's, they needed to do something about their range because it was getting a bit Green King heavy. It's too many clear bottles on those shelves. And Sainsbury's seem to be going backwards But I mean, the likes of Waitrose and Marks and Spencers, they're getting it right, I think. Their buyers seem to know beer, and you know, they know how to stock it well. And you know, for people, the casual beer drinker, the non-beer geek, I think, you know, supermarkets play, you know, an important role in getting beer out there to people. I think.
Sorry, if I can just jump in there.
Yeah,
absolutely. If I go back to when I was first buying beer, one of the things that it enabled me to sample so many beers was being able to go into the supermarket and pick up offers, so I can buy X number of beers for X amount of pounds. And you know, if, like you say, if you are just a casual drinker looking to maybe experiment with some beers, and you're suddenly presented with an opportunity to buy 4 beers for £6, you're going to look at that, and no matter who you are, you're going to be like, well, that's £1.50 a can, or that's £1.50 a bottle. You know, that's not a big risk to be taking, is it?
That's it. Yeah, totally. Especially when supermarkets rotate their stock as well. You know, you can find some hidden gems there, really. But I think supermarkets for the beer geek maybe play a different role. You'd go there to kind of restock and get an instant kind of restock. You know. Whereas, you know, I use my local bottle shop for local beers, and then I maybe use sort of online beer merchants for, you know, B-sides and rarities, you know, the limited edition stuff. So. Mm-hmm.
And let's be honest, who hasn't needed an instant hop hit and gone to their local Sainsbury's and bought a 660ml bomber of Punk IPA for £2.60? I've done that a number of times, regardless of how I feel about beers and supermarkets. Mark, what about yourself, mate? What's your views on this one? I mean, I remember back to the early days of the show where we used to have that conversation of, well, what's in your local supermarket and what's in my local supermarket, and you know, maybe if this had been 4 years ago, we would have had more of a choice to have started off with. But what do you think about this week's question?
Yeah, I mean, this show wouldn't have got started unless my local supermarket stocked some kind of interesting beers beyond the lagers. I will just echo what Lou and Michael said at the end of your quotes section, is that, you know, it's great beer and it's cheap and it's where you can stock up. And why, you know, the craft scene isn't going to get any bigger than it is now if we don't make it readily available to people who don't know where their local bottle shops are. I mean, we've got a local bottle shop in Streatham where I live. I can assure you that the majority of people have no idea it's even there. So they go to Tesco's, they go to Sainsbury's for their beer. Unfortunately, our Tesco's and Sainsbury's are quite shit when it comes to craft beer. But at least they have something, you know? And then they can get into it, and even though they put Innocent Gun under the world beer section, it at least opens their eyes to something other than Shepherd Neame and Green King. And they might Google and they might find some other beers to try out. So I think we can't keep craft beer in this little secret club.
Absolutely, and you know, I'm just going to finish this week by saying, if anybody's doubting the latest announcement by Tesco's, all I'm going to say is Vocation Life and Death IPA, 4 for £6. Just think about that for a minute. Okay, that's going to become your new favourite beer. So, anyway, it's been a really interesting hot topic again this week, and thanks to everyone for getting involved. There will be one more hot topic along this season. We are recording a day early next week, so it will be out a day early if you listen to this on a Friday. If not, hopefully you catch next week's hot topic, but you can find it on Twitter. Look for the hashtag hot topic, get involved, have a vote and have your say, and maybe you'll be in the top 5 comments that are read out on next week's show.
Indeedy. So any final comments on this Freudian slip from Naked Brewco?
I've nearly finished it.
Good on you.
It's sliding down far too well.
Okay, well, I'm just going to say at that point, that's really good that you did that, because we ran a is it almost like a hot topic extra this week in terms of who was going down first out of the three of us, and that poll was just finished as you say that, and sadly 61% of our listeners thought Mark was going down first tonight. So there you have it. And no, I'm really enjoying it, mate. It's still got that. It's just dark fruits, wood, and earth for me, and the combination of those three things just coming together really well balanced. A really lovely finish on it. Really nice beer. Really good stuff.
Yeah, it's got a great combination of flavours, and mixing into the 6.5% beer. It's just for that percentage, you don't really expect something that complex.
So I've just got. Sorry, mate. Sorry to jump in. I was just going to say that I just wanted to ask Rachel one more question before we wrapped up. Actually, in terms of where do you think things are going in Sussex in the next 12 months or so?
In the next 12 months, I think we're going to see more of those sessionable pale ales like we started with. I think those and stouts are really becoming key in the scene here. But I also think maybe we're going to swing back to best bitters. I think those have always been a key style in the Sussex portfolio, and I think those are going to stay strong. But yeah, more breweries are kegging their beers, more breweries are canning, and there's going to be more bars opening, more festivals popping up. I think, kegged beers definitely are going to be bigger this summer than they were last for Sussex brewers.
Okay, well, let's wrap this up. So, big thanks to Ales by Mail, Beautiful Beers, Beer Merchants, Any Brewer, who all offer a 10% discount to Beer O'Clock Show listeners on any beers from their website. So check out all the details on our beer list page on our website. Rachel, people can find you on Twitter at Look At Brew. Where else can they find you, mate?
WordPress website, so lookatbrew.wordpress.com, and I'm on Instagram Rach_lookatbrew.
Very good. And our website is beeroclockshow.co.uk. We're on Twitter at beeroclockshow, on Instagram at beeroclockshow. Steve is on Untapped at Beer Show Steve. I'm on Untapped at Beer Show Mark, and I'm on Twitter at Beer Show Mark. Next week, Steve, is the final beer of our Belgian season. We've got Saison DuPont. Who's joining us next week?
Next week, we're being joined by Matt Chinnery, who will be known to many as the Half Pint Gent. He's joining us to review that beer with us. And next week's an interesting show, mate, because although it's the penultimate show of this season, it's going to kind of be the wrap-up show of this season, because we've already recorded the season finale last week at Hot Burns and Black. So next week you can expect us to be doing a little bit of let's have a look back at this season, what have we enjoyed, what's been good, all that sort of stuff, as well as drinking the classic Saison DuPont with Matt.
Indeed, and be sure to look out for next week's last hot topic.
It's a strange one. It's all over the place. So yeah, next week will be your last opportunity for a few weeks to get involved in a hot topic.
Indeed. Rachel, thanks very much for joining us, mate. It's been a pleasure to see you.
Cheers,
thanks,
Rachel.
Guys. Yeah, I've had fun.
Thanks for coming on.
And Steve, until next week.
And sorry, no, hang on. And Rachel, I'm sorry. Thank you for the beers as well, because you did supply us with the beers. So thank you very much for getting those to us.
No problem.
So, Steve, until next week, mate.
It's been the highlight of my week.
And mine. Bye-bye.